I cannot believe you are doing this to me, Damien, Sophia Laurent whispered from her wheelchair, her hands trembling as she gripped the armrests. After everything we have been through, after 6 years of marriage, you are just going to leave me here like I am nothing. Damien Laurent stood across their bedroom in their penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, his back to his wife, his shoulders tense beneath his expensive Italian suit. You are not nothing, Sophia, he said, his voice flat and emotionless. You are my responsibility. That is why I am making sure you are taken care of. The facility is the best in Chicago. Round-the-clock care, physical therapists. Everything you need. Everything I need, Sophia repeated, her voice breaking. Damien, what I need is my husband. What I need is for you to remember that 2 years ago, before the accident, you told me you would love me forever. You promised me nothing would ever come between us. That was before, Damien said, finally turning to face her. His handsome face, the one that had made her fall in love with him 7 years ago, was now a mask of cold indifference. Before you became like this, before I had to rearrange my entire life around your limitations. I have tried, Sophia. God knows I have tried. But I cannot do this anymore. I cannot spend the rest of my life taking care of someone who will never get better. Never get better, Sophia said, tears streaming down her face now. The doctors said with proper therapy, with time, I could regain some mobility. But I need support, Damien. I need you. I have given you 2 years, Damien said coldly. 2 years of my life on hold. 2 years of watching you struggle to do things that used to be simple. 2 years of being married to half a woman. I am done, Sophia. The papers are filed. The divorce will be final in 60 days. You will be moved to Meadowbrook Care Facility tomorrow morning. Everything is arranged. You are divorcing me because I am in a wheelchair, Sophia said, the reality finally sinking in. You are throwing me away because I am not perfect anymore. Because I am broken. You are not broken, Damien said, but his tone suggested he did not believe his own words. You are just not the woman I married. That woman was strong, independent, beautiful. She could walk beside me at events, could be seen on my arm without people staring and whispering. You cannot be that person anymore. And I refuse to spend my life pretending that does not matter. So appearance matters more than our vows, Sophia said quietly. Your reputation matters more than the fact that I almost died in that car accident. An accident, Damien, that happened because I was coming to your office to surprise you for our anniversary. Do not put that on me, Damien snapped. The accident was not my fault. A drunk driver hit you. I am sorry it happened. I truly am. But that does not mean I have to sacrifice the rest of my life because of it. Sacrifice, Sophia repeated, the word tasting like poison. Being married to me is a sacrifice. Yes, Damien said without hesitation. It is. And I am tired of sacrificing. So tomorrow you move to Meadowbrook. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce proceedings. You will be well cared for financially. The settlement is generous. But this marriage is over. He walked toward the door, then paused. For what it is worth, Sophia, I did love you once. I hope you can find happiness somewhere. Just not with me. He left, closing the door behind him, and Sophia sat alone in her wheelchair in the bedroom she had shared with her husband for 6 years, feeling the shattered pieces of her heart scatter across the expensive carpet. What you're about to hear is going to shock you. Stay with me because the final twist is something nobody could have predicted, not even Damien Laurent himself. This is the story of Sophia Laurent, and it is the story of how a powerful man abandoned his disabled wife thinking she was helpless. How a woman everyone dismissed as broken was secretly planning something that would change everything, and how a will revealed after her death destroyed the man who thought he could just walk away. This story will teach you a powerful lesson. Never assume someone in a wheelchair is powerless. Never mistake physical limitations for weakness. And never, ever underestimate what a brilliant woman can accomplish when the man she loved throws her away. Where are you watching from right now? Are you alone? What time is it there? Because you need to hear every word of what happens next. If you have ever been abandoned when you needed someone most, if anyone has ever made you feel worthless because of circumstances beyond your control, this story is for you. Stay with me because what Sophia Laurent did in the shadows will leave you speechless. Kindly hit the subscribe button. Let's continue. Sophia Laurent, born Sophia Chen, had grown up in San Francisco's Chinatown, the daughter of immigrants who ran a small restaurant on Grant Avenue. Her parents, Michael and Lynn Chen, had come to America with nothing but hope and determination, working 18-hour days, 7 days a week to give their only daughter opportunities they never had. The restaurant, Golden Lotus, was tiny, just 12 tables crammed into a space that smelled perpetually of garlic, ginger, and the sweat of hard work. Sophia's childhood was spent doing homework at the corner table while her mother took orders and her father cooked in the cramped kitchen. The sound of sizzling woks and shouted Cantonese creating the soundtrack of her early years. But Sophia was brilliant. Exceptionally, undeniably brilliant. Her teachers noticed immediately. By 3rd grade, she was reading at a high school level. By 5th grade, she was doing algebra that confused her parents when they tried to help with homework. By the time she reached high school, she was taking advanced placement courses in everything, graduating valedictorian with a perfect grade point average and scholarship offers from every university she applied to. She chose UC Berkeley, studying computer science and business, double majoring because one degree felt insufficient for her hungry mind. Her parents wept with pride at her graduation, standing in their best clothes they had saved for months to buy, watching their daughter receive her diploma with highest honors. This was why they had sacrificed everything, why they had worked until their bodies ached and their hands were scarred from kitchen burns. Their daughter was going to have the life they never could, the life that America had promised when they arrived with nothing. At 25, Sophia was working as a software engineer at a tech startup in San Francisco, earning more money than her parents had made in their best year running the restaurant. She was independent, successful, living in a small apartment in the Mission District, dating occasionally but focused primarily on her career. She had plans, big plans, ideas for her own projects that she worked on late at night after her day job, code that she believed could change industries if she could just find the right opportunity to develop it fully. Then she met Damien Laurent. It was at a tech networking event in Chicago where Sophia had relocated for a better position at a growing company. She was standing by the bar, nursing a glass of wine and half listening to a conversation about venture capital when she noticed him. Damien was impossible to miss. He commanded attention simply by existing, tall and handsome in an expensive suit, surrounded by people who hung on his every word. But it was not his appearance that caught Sophia's attention. It was the way people deferred to him, the subtle fear mixed with respect in their eyes. The way conversations stopped when he approached and only resumed when he gave permission. Sophia knew power when she saw it. She had studied it, understood its dynamics, recognized its patterns. And Damien Laurent radiated power like heat from a furnace. Their eyes met across the room. Damien excused himself from his conversation and walked directly to her, his focus absolute and slightly unnerving. "You look bored," he said by way of introduction. His voice was deep, controlled, with just a trace of an accent that suggested Italian heritage generations back. "Not bored," Sophia replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "Just selectively interested." Damien smiled, genuinely amused. "I am Damien Laurent," he said, extending his hand. "Sophia Chen," she replied, shaking it. His grip was firm, his hand warm, and something electric passed between them that made Sophia pull back slightly, surprised by the intensity of the connection. "You are not from Chicago," Damien observed. "I would remember you." "San Francisco originally," Sophia said. "I relocated 3 months ago for work." "What kind of work?" Damien asked, leaning against the bar, his full attention focused on her in a way that made the rest of the room fade into background noise. "Software engineering," Sophia said. "I work in artificial intelligence, machine learning applications for financial modeling." "That is impressive," Damien said, and unlike most men Sophia had encountered in her field, he seemed genuinely interested rather than condescending. "My company has been looking into AI integration for some of our operations." "Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner," Sophia hesitated. She knew who Damien Laurent was, had heard the name whispered at the event, had seen the way people treated him with the kind of deference usually reserved for royalty or criminals. "Is this a business dinner or a personal one?" she asked directly. Damien's smile widened. "I would prefer personal," he said, "but I will take whatever you are willing to give me." Against her better judgment, against every instinct that told her getting involved with a man like Damien Laurent was dangerous, Sophia agreed. They had dinner the next night at a restaurant so exclusive it did not have a sign, where the maitre d' greeted Damien by name and led them to a private room without being asked. Over courses of food Sophia could barely identify, but that tasted extraordinary. They talked. About everything. Her childhood in Chinatown, his upbringing in Chicago's wealthier suburbs. Her passion for technology, his complicated relationship with the family business he had inherited. Her dreams of starting her own company someday, his desire to be something more than what people expected him to be. By the end of the night, Sophia understood two things clearly. First, Damien Laurent was exactly as dangerous as his reputation suggested, connected to organized crime in ways he did not explicitly state but that were obvious in how he talked about business. Second, she was falling for him anyway, drawn to the intelligence behind his eyes, the unexpected vulnerability he showed when he talked about his father's death, the way he listened to her ideas about technology as if they actually mattered. Their courtship was intense, overwhelming, like being caught in a riptide. Damien pursued her with single-minded focus, as if she were a problem he needed to solve, a prize he needed to win. He sent flowers to her office every day, elaborate arrangements that made her co-workers whisper and stare. He took her to shows, museums, weekend trips to New York and Miami on his private jet. He introduced her to his world slowly, carefully, showing her the legitimate businesses he ran while keeping her away from the darker aspects of his empire. Sophia's friends warned her. Her parents, when she finally told them about Damien, were terrified. "He is not a good man," her father said in Cantonese, his face grave. "I have heard the Laurent name. They are connected to bad people, dangerous people. You should run from this man, not toward him." But Sophia could not run. She was already too deep, already too tangled in Damien's web. And truthfully, part of her did not want to run. Damien made her feel alive in ways she never had before, made her feel seen and valued and desired with an intensity that was addictive. 1 year after they met, Damien proposed. They were at his estate in the Hamptons, walking on the beach at sunset, and he dropped to one knee in the sand with a diamond ring that probably cost more than her parents had earned in their entire lives. "Marry me, Sophia," he said. "Not because of what I can give you, but because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Because I love you more than I have ever loved anything." Sophia said yes. Even knowing what he was, even understanding the risks, even hearing her parents' desperate pleas to reconsider, she said yes. Because she loved him. Because she believed she could be the person who finally made him choose something other than violence and crime. Because at 26 years old, she was still naive enough to think love could conquer everything. They were married 6 months later in an extravagant ceremony at a vineyard in Napa Valley. Sophia wearing a dress that cost $30,000, Damien in a custom Italian suit. 300 guests watching them exchange vows under an arch of white roses. Her parents attended but looked terrified the entire time, surrounded by Damien's associates who radiated danger despite their expensive clothes and polite manners. But when Sophia looked at Damien, when she saw the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered, she thought maybe her parents were wrong. Maybe this would work. Maybe love was enough. The first 4 years of marriage were genuinely good, better than Sophia had any right to expect. They lived in the penthouse in Chicago, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, decorated with art that cost more than Sophia's entire Berkeley education. Damien encouraged her to leave her job, told her she should work on her own projects, pursue her own ideas without the constraints of someone else's company. He set up a home office for her, state-of-the-art equipment, anything she needed, and seemed genuinely interested when she talked about the algorithms she was developing, the applications she was building, even if he did not fully understand the technical details. They traveled constantly. Paris, London, Tokyo, Sydney. Damien had business everywhere and he took Sophia with him, showed her the world in luxury she never could have afforded on her own. They talked about starting a family, about what their children would be like, about building something that would last beyond Damien's criminal empire. Sophia began to believe she had made the right choice. That despite everything, despite who Damien was and what he did, they had found something real. Then came their 6th anniversary. Sophia spent the afternoon preparing a surprise, planning to show up at Damien's office downtown with dinner from Piccolo Sogno, his favorite Italian restaurant. and tickets to Hamilton, which he had mentioned wanting to see but never had time for. She was excited, smiling as she drove through Chicago traffic, thinking about his reaction, about how they would spend the evening together celebrating 6 years of a marriage that had survived despite all the odds against it. She never made it to his office. At the intersection of Michigan Avenue and Randolph Street, a pickup truck ran a red light doing 50 miles per hour and slammed directly into the driver's side of her Mercedes. The impact was catastrophic. The car crumpled like paper. Glass exploded. Metal screamed. Sophia felt pain beyond anything she had ever imagined, felt her body breaking, felt herself losing consciousness as bystanders screamed and sirens wailed in the distance. She woke up 3 days later in the intensive care unit of Chicago Memorial Hospital. The first thing she saw was Damien sitting beside her bed, unshaven, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot from crying and lack of sleep. The relief that flooded his face when she opened her eyes was so profound, so genuine, that for a moment Sophia thought everything would be okay. He loved her. She could see it, feel it, know it with certainty. He would help her through whatever came next. Then the doctors came in. A team of them, led by a neurosurgeon named Dr. Patel, who looked like she had delivered terrible news before and hated it every single time. They explained the extent of Sophia's injuries with clinical precision that somehow made it worse. Severe spinal cord damage at the T6 level. Multiple fractures in her pelvis and both legs. Internal bleeding that they had barely managed to control during emergency surgery. Damage to her lungs from the impact that would require monitoring. She had survived, which the doctors called a miracle, but the damage to her spine was catastrophic and irreversible. "You will likely never walk again," Dr. Patel said gently, her hand on Sophia's shoulder. "I am so very sorry. With intensive physical therapy, you might regain some limited mobility in your upper body. Might be able to transfer yourself with assistance, but a wheelchair will be your reality for the foreseeable future. Possibly forever." Sophia heard the words, but they did not seem real. She looked at her legs beneath the hospital blanket, tried to move them, felt nothing. Panic rose in her chest, making the monitors beep frantically. "No," she said. "No, that cannot be right. I am 31 years old. I cannot be, I am not." Damien took her hand, squeezed it hard. "We will get through this," he said, his voice fierce. "Together. I promise you, Sophia. I am not going anywhere. We will face this together and we will beat it. Do you hear me? You are going to be okay." Sophia wanted to believe him. Looking at his face, seeing the determination in his eyes, she thought maybe he was right. Maybe together they could overcome even this. She squeezed his hand back, drew strength from his presence, let herself believe that love would be enough to carry them through. But even then, even in that hospital room with Damien holding her hand and promising forever, Sophia saw something flicker in his eyes when he looked at her legs, at the machines monitoring her vitals, at the reality of what their life was about to become. She saw fear. Or maybe resignation. Or maybe the first shadow of the withdrawal that would eventually destroy everything between them. The next 2 months were a blur of surgeries, infections, setbacks, tiny victories that felt monumental. Sophia learned to sit up without vomiting from the pain. Learned to use her arms to move her upper body. Learned to accept that her legs would never work again, that the life she had known was over. That she was starting from zero in a body that no longer obeyed her commands. Physical therapists worked with her daily, pushing her to her limits and beyond. Occupational therapists taught her how to do basic tasks from a wheelchair. Psychologists tried to help her process the grief of losing her mobility, tried to keep her from sinking into the depression that threatened to swallow her whole. Damien visited every day during those 2 months. He brought her flowers, magazines, anything she asked for. He sat with her during therapy sessions, held her hand when she cried, told her she was brave and strong and that he was proud of her. But Sophia could feel the distance growing between them like frost spreading across glass. She could sense his discomfort when he had to help her with things. When nurses taught him how to assist with transfers from bed to wheelchair, when he saw her struggle with tasks that used to be effortless. He never said anything, never complained, but Sophia could read him too well after 6 years of marriage. She saw the truth in his eyes even when his words said something different. When she finally came home to the penthouse, Damien had already made changes. Their master bedroom was on the 2nd floor, up a flight of stairs Sophia could no longer climb. So he had converted the study on the first floor into a bedroom for her, installed a hospital bed with rails, brought in a wheelchair-accessible bathroom with grab bars and a roll-in shower. Everything was practical and functional and completely devoid of the warmth their bedroom upstairs had always had. "This is temporary," Damien said when he showed her the setup. "Just until you are strong enough to manage the stairs. We will figure something out." But they never did. The temporary bedroom became permanent. Damien continued sleeping in the master suite upstairs, claiming she would be more comfortable on the ground floor where everything was accessible, where she would not feel isolated if she needed help in the middle of the night. A night nurse was hired to stay with Sophia, an efficient woman named Patricia who was kind but professional, who treated Sophia with the polite distance of someone doing a job rather than caring for a person. The real shift happened slowly over the next year, so gradually that Sophia almost did not notice until it was too late to stop. Damien stopped touching her except when necessary. Stopped kissing her goodbye when he left for work in the morning. Stopped having real conversations, the kind where they used to talk for hours about everything and nothing. He hired more staff to help with Sophia's care, which meant he rarely had to interact with her physical needs directly. He attended fewer of her physical therapy sessions. He made excuses to work late, to travel for business, to be anywhere except home with his disabled wife. Sophia tried desperately to bridge the growing gap between them. She pushed herself harder in therapy, desperate to show progress, to prove she was still the woman he married even if her body no longer worked the same way. She tried to engage him in conversations about his business, about his day, about anything that might make him see her as a partner again instead of a burden. She attempted to maintain intimacy in whatever ways they still could, but Damien gently rebuffed her advances, claimed he was tired, claimed he did not want to hurt her, claimed the timing was not right. The truth, which Sophia finally forced herself to acknowledge, was that Damien had already left their marriage emotionally, even if he was still physically present in the penthouse. To him, she was no longer his wife. She was a responsibility he had inherited, a problem without a solution, a constant reminder of a future he never wanted. The breaking point came 18 months after the accident at a charity gala hosted by one of Chicago's most prominent philanthropists. Damien had not wanted to bring Sophia. He had tried every excuse, claiming the venue was not wheelchair accessible even though she verified it was, claiming she would be too tired even though she felt fine, claiming it would be better if she stayed home and rested. But Sophia insisted. She bought a beautiful midnight blue gown that worked with her wheelchair, had her hair styled professionally, spent an hour on her makeup. Desperate to show Damien she could still be the woman who appeared beside him at these events, could still be the partner he needed. The evening was a complete disaster from the moment they arrived. The valet parking attendant looked uncomfortable taking Damien's keys while Sophia sat in her wheelchair, clearly uncertain about the protocol. Other guests arriving at the same time stared, some with pity, some with barely concealed discomfort, whispering behind their hands as Damien pushed Sophia's wheelchair through the entrance. Inside the venue, a historic mansion converted into an event space. People parted like the Red Sea as they approached, creating an awkward corridor of space around them. Damien's business associates, men he had known for years, offered stilted condolences. "I am so sorry about what happened, Mrs. Laurent," one said, speaking too loudly as if Sophia's disability had also affected her hearing. "You are very brave to come out tonight." Their wives were worse, bending down to talk to Sophia at eye level in the patronizing tone people use with children or the elderly, touching her shoulder with pitying expressions that made Sophia want to scream. Photographers from the society pages avoided taking pictures of Damien and Sophia together, not wanting the wheelchair in their shots, only clicking their cameras when Damien stepped away. During dinner, Sophia was seated at the end of a long table where her wheelchair could fit, which meant she was separated from Damien by 3 other guests, isolated in her own corner while conversations flowed around her but rarely included her. People spoke to her briefly out of obligation, then quickly returned to talking to other guests, as if disability were contagious and they might catch it by proximity. Damien spent most of the night making excuses to leave her. He needed to speak with a potential investor. He had to greet the host. He must network with some associates who had just arrived. Each time he walked away, Sophia felt more alone, more like a burden he was trying to escape. Patricia, her nurse who had accompanied them, tried to make conversation, but it only made things worse, highlighting that Sophia needed a caretaker to attend social events while everyone else came with spouses and dates. On the drive home, the tension in the car was suffocating. Damien stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched, his hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly. Sophia sat in the passenger seat, her wheelchair folded in the trunk, feeling the weight of the evening pressing down on her like a physical force. Finally, Damien spoke. "I cannot do this anymore, Sophia." His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was discussing business rather than their marriage. "I cannot keep pretending this is normal. Tonight was humiliating. Everyone was looking at you with pity. I have worked my entire adult life to build a reputation, to be respected and feared in this city. And now I am the man with the crippled wife. That is what they see. That is what you have turned me into." Sophia stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing, even though part of her had known this was coming. "You are upset because my disability embarrasses you," she said quietly. "That is what this is really about. Not concern for me. Not compassion for what I have been through. Just your precious reputation." "Do not act like reputation does not matter," Damien snapped. "In my world, perception is everything. Weakness is death. And being seen with you like this makes me look weak. It makes people question whether I am still capable of running my businesses, whether I am distracted, whether I can be taken advantage of because I have a disabled wife at home who needs constant care." "I almost died," Sophia said, her voice rising. "I spent 2 months in a hospital fighting to survive. I have spent 18 months relearning how to do basic tasks that used to be automatic. I wake up every day in a body that does not work, and I fight to keep going anyway. And all you can think about is how it makes you look." "Yes," Damien said without apology, without even a hint of shame. "Because in my world, that is what matters. And I am tired of apologizing for that reality." That was when Sophia knew with absolute certainty that her marriage was over. Not officially, not yet, but emotionally, spiritually, in every way that actually mattered. The man she loved, the man she had believed would stand beside her through anything, was gone. He had been replaced by someone who valued image over humanity, reputation over loyalty, appearances over the woman who had loved him completely. She stopped trying to fix things after that night. Stopped pushing herself to attend events that made Damien uncomfortable. Stopped attempting conversations he clearly did not want to have. Stopped hoping he would remember the vows he made, the promises he whispered in her ear on their wedding night. Instead, she focused on her physical therapy, on learning to navigate her new reality, on rebuilding herself piece by piece. And she started working on something else, something private, something Damien knew nothing about, something that would become her lifeline and eventually her revenge. Sophia had always been brilliant with technology, but after the accident, trapped in a body that limited her physical mobility, she threw herself into her work with an intensity that bordered on obsession. She spent hours every day in her converted bedroom turned office, her laptop balanced on a special desk that worked with her wheelchair, her mind creating code while her body remained still. The nurse assumed she was just keeping herself occupied, just finding ways to pass the endless hours. Damien, on the rare occasions he asked what she was doing, dismissed it as a hobby, something to keep her mind busy while she wasted away in his penthouse. Neither of them had any idea what she was actually building. 6 months after the disastrous charity gala, Damien filed for divorce. He did not have the courage to tell Sophia himself. Instead, his lawyer showed up at the penthouse at 9 in the morning on a Tuesday, a thin man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase full of papers. "Mrs. Laurent," the lawyer said with barely concealed distaste as he sat across from Sophia in the living room, "I have been instructed by Mr. Laurent to inform you that he can no longer continue this marriage. He has arranged for your placement at Meadowbrook Care Facility, a very prestigious assisted living center. Your financial needs will be met through a settlement trust. The divorce will be finalized in 60 days. Sophia took the papers he handed her, her hands surprisingly steady even though inside she was screaming, breaking, shattering into pieces. "Where is Damien?" she asked. "Why is he not here to tell me this himself?" "Mr. Laurent felt it would be easier this way," the lawyer said. "Less emotional. He believes it is better for both of you to handle this matter professionally rather than emotionally." "You mean he does not have the courage to face me?" Sophia said. "You mean he is too much of a coward to look me in the eye while he throws me away?" The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Nevertheless, the arrangements have been made. You will be moved to Meadowbrook tomorrow morning. Professional movers will arrive at 8 a.m. to pack your personal belongings. Everything else, the furniture, the artwork, the items purchased during your marriage, will remain here as they are considered marital property that Mr. Laurent is retaining." "I understand," Sophia said quietly. She looked down at the divorce papers, at the settlement offer, at the cold legal language that reduced 6 years of marriage to financial transactions and asset divisions. The settlement was $2 million placed in a trust that would provide her with a modest monthly income of $10,000. Enough to live comfortably in the care facility, but not enough to truly be independent, not enough to threaten Damien's control. He had calculated it perfectly. Generous enough to look good if anyone asked, minimal enough to keep her dependent. She signed the papers without protest. There was no point fighting. Damien had all the power, all the money, all the lawyers. Fighting would accomplish nothing except prolonging the pain, giving him more opportunities to remind her how powerless she was. That night, alone in the penthouse for the last time, Sophia made a series of phone calls. To her lawyer, a woman Damien had never met who handled Sophia's private affairs. To her financial advisor, a discreet professional who managed accounts Damien knew nothing about. To several other people connected to projects that existed entirely outside her marriage, entirely beyond Damien's awareness. By morning, everything was in motion. Damien thought he was discarding a helpless, disabled woman. He had no idea what he was actually setting free. The move to Meadowbrook Care Facility was efficient and impersonal. Professional movers packed Sophia's belongings into boxes with brisk efficiency, treating her possessions like inventory rather than pieces of a life. A medical transport van took her and her wheelchair to the facility, the driver making polite small talk about the weather while Sophia stared out the window watching her old life disappear behind her. Damien was nowhere to be seen. He had already moved on, already erased her from his life with the same cold efficiency he used to eliminate business problems. Meadowbrook was nice as far as such places went. Clean, well-staffed. Beautiful grounds with manicured gardens and walking paths Sophia would never use. Private rooms with the best equipment money could buy. But it was still an institution, still a place where people were sent to be forgotten, to live out whatever time they had left away from the people who no longer wanted to deal with them. Sophia was assigned a private suite, the largest in the facility thanks to Damien's generous payment for her care. The suite had a bedroom, a small sitting area, a private bathroom designed for wheelchair accessibility. A nurse named Margaret checked on her 3 times a day. Physical therapists came twice a week to work with her. But mostly Sophia was alone with her thoughts and her laptop and the work that nobody understood. She fell into a routine quickly. Wake at 6. Shower with Margaret's help, a process that still felt humiliating even after 2 years of needing assistance. Breakfast in the common dining room where other residents stared at her because she was so much younger than everyone else. Then back to her room where she would work on her laptop for hours, only breaking for meals and therapy sessions. The staff thought she was just keeping herself occupied. They had no idea what she was actually doing, no concept of the empire she was building, one line of code at a time. The divorce was finalized 3 months after she moved to Meadowbrook. The papers arrived by courier, official and final. Sophia signed them without ceremony, officially ending her marriage to Damien Laurent. She was 33 years old, divorced, disabled, living in an assisted living facility. From the outside, her life looked like a tragedy, like a cautionary tale about trusting the wrong man, about how quickly everything could fall apart. From the inside, Sophia was just getting started. 4 months after the divorce was finalized, Sophia started feeling sick. Not the usual aches and pains from her spinal injury, but something different. Persistent fatigue that rest did not fix. Shortness of breath that got worse instead of better. A cough that would not go away. She mentioned it to Margaret during a routine check, thinking it was just a cold or maybe pneumonia. Margaret insisted she see a doctor. The tests started simple. Blood work. Chest x-rays. Then they got more serious. CT scans. A biopsy. Consultations with specialists who spoke in quiet voices and exchanged meaningful looks. Finally, 3 weeks after her initial complaint, Sophia was called into an office to meet with Dr. Sarah Kim, a pulmonologist who had reviewed all her results. Mrs. Laurent, Dr. Kim said gently, sitting across from Sophia in a consultation room that felt too small and too cold. I'm afraid the news is not good. The tests show significant damage to your lung tissue, damage we believe is a delayed complication from your car accident. Your lungs were more severely injured than we initially realized, and the tissue has been slowly deteriorating over the past 2 years. At this stage, the damage is irreversible. What does that mean? Sophia asked, though she already knew from the doctor's expression. From the sympathetic set of her shoulders, from the way she had called this meeting in person rather than over the phone. It means your respiratory function will continue to decline, Dr. Kim said. We can keep you comfortable with oxygen therapy and medications to ease your breathing. But Mrs. Laurent, I am very sorry to tell you this. Based on the extent of the damage and the rate of deterioration, you have perhaps 8 to 10 months. I am dying, Sophia said calmly, stating it as fact rather than question. Yes, Dr. Kim confirmed. I am so very sorry. Sophia sat in that office absorbing the information with a strange sense of detachment, as if the doctor were talking about someone else, some other woman whose body was failing piece by piece. She was 33 years old. She had survived a horrific car accident that should have killed her. She had rebuilt her life from a wheelchair despite every obstacle. She had endured abandonment by the man who promised to love her forever, and now she was dying. She thought about calling Damien, her ex-husband, the man who had divorced her because her disability embarrassed him, the man who had thrown her into this facility and walked away without looking back. She picked up her phone, found his contact information, stared at his name for a long moment. Then she deleted it and made a different call, to her lawyer, the one who had helped her with her private work, the one who understood what she had been building, the one who would help her make sure that even in death, Sophia Chen Laurent would have the last word. I need to update my will, Sophia said when her lawyer answered. I need to make very specific arrangements. And I need you to make absolutely certain they are carried out exactly as I specify, no matter who tries to contest them. Of course, her lawyer said. What did you have in mind? Sophia smiled, a cold expression that would have frightened anyone who saw it. Revenge, she said simply. I have revenge in mind. Over the next 3 months, as her breathing got worse and oxygen became a constant companion, Sophia carefully crafted her final message to the world. Her will was detailed, specific, and devastating. She left money to her parents who deserved to know their daughter's success, even if they only learned about it after she was gone. She left generous amounts to the nurses at Meadowbrook who had shown her kindness. She left substantial donations to charities supporting spinal injury research. But the bulk of her estate, the thing Damien knew nothing about, the secret she had kept hidden for years, was designated in a way that would destroy the man who thought he had thrown away a helpless, disabled woman. She also recorded a video, her final testimony, an explanation for why she structured her will the way she did, for what she wanted people to know about Damien Laurent, for the truth about their marriage and his cruelty. The video was to be played at the reading of her will, witnessed by everyone she designated to be present, including Damien. Sophia died on a Tuesday morning in late November, 8 months after her diagnosis. She died peacefully in her room at Meadowbrook, Margaret holding her hand, oxygen mask on her face, morphine easing the pain of her final hours. She was 33 years old, just 7 years after the accident that changed everything. And she died knowing that her death would accomplish what her life could not. It would force Damien Laurent to finally see exactly what he had thrown away. The funeral was small. Sophia's parents flew in from San Francisco, devastated by the loss of their only child, the daughter they had sacrificed everything for. A few former colleagues from her tech days attended. The entire staff from Meadowbrook came to pay their respects. And Damien Laurent showed up, standing at the back of the service in a black suit, his face carefully neutral. Because despite everything he had once loved Sophia, and some part of him mourned what they had lost even if he had been the one to destroy it. Sophia's father saw Damien and turned away without acknowledgement, his contempt clear. Her mother sobbed harder, her grief compounded by rage at the man who had abandoned her daughter. The other attendees whispered, everyone knowing the story. Everyone understanding that Damien Laurent had no right to be there but lacked the power to make him leave. After the service, after Sophia's body was cremated per her wishes, the lawyer sent formal notices to everyone required to attend the reading of her will, Sophia's parents, the nursing staff from Meadowbrook, representatives from 3 major charities, and Damien Laurent, who was surprised to receive the summons. Why would Sophia want me at the reading of her will? Damien asked when he called the lawyer. We were divorced. I have no claim to anything she owned. Nevertheless, the lawyer said, Mrs. Lawrence specifically requested your presence. In fact, she made it a binding condition of the will being executed. Every person she named must be present or the distribution of assets will be delayed indefinitely. Can you attend tomorrow at 2 p.m. at my office downtown? Fine, Damien said, irritation clear in his voice. I will be there. The next day, Damien arrived at the law office in the Loop, a sleek modern building with panoramic views of Lake Michigan. He was led to a large conference room where a dozen people were already seated. Sophia's parents at one end of the table, her mother's eyes red from crying, her father's expression cold with hatred directed entirely at Damien. 3 people in business suits who appeared to be executives of some kind. Several nurses from Meadowbrook. Representatives from charitable organizations. All of them looked at Damien when he entered, their expressions ranging from pity to disgust. The lawyer, Elizabeth Monroe, entered and took her place at the head of the table. Thank you all for coming, she said. We are here for the reading of Sophia Chen-Laurent's last will and testament. Before we proceed with the distribution of assets, Mrs. Laurent left specific instructions that a video be played. This video represents her final statement, and it is essential that everyone present watches it in its entirety. She dimmed the lights and started the video on the large screen at the end of the conference room. The image showed Sophia in her room at Meadowbrook, clearly near the end. She was impossibly thin, her skin pale, her breathing labored even with the oxygen cannula in her nose. But her eyes were fierce, determined, burning with an intensity that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. Hello, Sophia said, her voice weak but clear. If you are watching this, I am dead. And I have some things to say that I could not say while I was alive. Some truths that need to be told. Some people who need to hear exactly what they did and what it cost. She looked directly at the camera, directly at Damien through time and death. Damien, I know you are there. Elizabeth assured me you would be, that you would have no choice but to attend. So this is for you. Damien felt every eye in the room turn toward him. He sat frozen, unable to look away from the screen, from the ghost of his ex-wife speaking from beyond the grave. You left me when I needed you most, Sophia continued. You abandoned me because I was in a wheelchair, because I embarrassed you in front of your business associates, because in your pathetic, insecure world, having a disabled wife made you look weak. You told me I was half a woman. You made me feel worthless. You threw me into a care facility like I was garbage, and you walked away without looking back. Her expression hardened, transformed from accusation to something colder. But here is what you did not know, Damien. While you were dismissing me as broken and useless, while you were so certain I had nothing left to offer, I was building something. Something you never bothered to ask about because you did not think my work mattered. The screen changed, showing corporate documents, incorporation papers, financial statements. My company, Sophia said, Athena Technologies, an artificial intelligence firm specializing in financial prediction algorithms. I incorporated it 6 months before my accident, using code I had developed over years, code I owned completely. While you were ignoring me, while you were so busy being embarrassed by your disabled wife, I was growing this company from my wheelchair. Damien's mouth fell open. He stared at the screen in complete shock, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. Athena Technologies, Sophia continued, is currently valued at $47 million. That is right, Damien. 47 million. I am worth more than 20 times what you settled on me in our divorce. I built a revolutionary AI company that is changing the financial technology industry. I did all of this from a wheelchair, from a care facility room, while dying from complications of the accident you claimed was not your fault. Because you were wrong about me, I was not half a woman. I was never weak. You just stopped seeing me as human. The room was silent except for Sophia's voice, everyone transfixed by the revelation, by the sheer magnitude of what this dying woman had accomplished while everyone thought she was helpless. So here is what is going to happen with my estate, Sophia said. My parents, who loved me unconditionally, who never made me feel like less than a complete person despite my disability, receive $5 million each. The nurses and staff at Meadowbrook who showed me more genuine kindness in 8 months than you showed me in 2 years of marriage receive $1 million to be split among them. 3 charities supporting spinal injury research and disability rights received $2 million each. She paused, letting the numbers sink in, letting Damien calculate what was left. And Athena Technologies, my $47 million company, the one you knew nothing about because you never cared enough to ask what I was working on, is being placed into an irrevocable foundation. The Sophia Chen-Laurent Foundation for Women in Technology. It will provide grants, scholarships, and startup funding for women, particularly disabled women, who want to pursue careers in technology and business. Damien felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "You are giving $47 million to charity," he said aloud, even though Sophia could not hear him, even though she was dead and gone and beyond his reach. As if anticipating his reaction, Sophia smiled coldly on the screen. "Yes, Damien. I am giving away everything I built. Every dollar I earned through my own brilliance while you thought I was wasting away. Because the money does not matter to me anymore. What matters is the message. The message that you were wrong. That I was worth so much more than you could see. That abandoning me was the biggest mistake of your miserable life." The camera zoomed closer on Sophia's face, showing every line of pain, every shadow of approaching death, every ounce of the fierce determination that had kept her going. "And Damien, there is one more thing I need you to know. Something that I hope haunts you for the rest of your days. When I was in that hospital after the accident, when the doctors told me I might never walk again, do you remember what you said to me?" Damien remembered. He had said, "We will get through this together. I am not going anywhere." "You promised you were not going anywhere," Sophia said, reading his mind across time. "You held my hand and you told me we would face this together." "I believed you, Damien. For the first time in my life, I let myself be completely vulnerable with another person. I trusted you to keep your promise. And you shattered that trust the moment it became inconvenient." A single tear rolled down Sophia's cheek on the screen, the only sign of emotion she allowed herself. "So yes, I am dead now. My body finally gave out. But I want you to know that you killed me long before my lungs failed. You killed the part of me that believed in love, that believed in partnership, that believed vows meant something. You killed that the day you looked at me in my wheelchair and decided I was not worth fighting for." The screen went dark for a moment. When Sophia's face returned, her expression was final, cold, absolutely unforgiving. "Goodbye, Damien Laurent. I hope you find whatever it was you thought you needed more than our marriage. I hope it makes you happy, because you will never have another chance with me. Never have a chance to apologize or make things right. This is your legacy. You are the man who abandoned his dying wife, and now everyone knows it." The video ended. The lights came up. Every single person in that conference room was staring at Damien with expressions that ranged from pity to disgust to outright hatred. Sophia's father looked like he wanted to kill him. Her mother was crying again, but this time with what looked like satisfaction. The vindication of watching the man who destroyed her daughter finally exposed for what he was. Elizabeth Monroe cleared her throat. "That concludes Mrs. Laurent's video testimony. Now, as to the distribution of assets as outlined in her will." She proceeded to read exactly what Sophia had described. Her parents received their $5 million each, more money than they had earned in their entire lives running their restaurant. The Meadowbrook staff received their $1 million to split, several of the nurses openly weeping at the generosity. The charities received their donations. And Athena Technologies, the $47 million empire that Damien had known nothing about, was placed into an irrevocable foundation with a board of trustees Sophia had personally selected, none of whom Damien had ever met. "Mr. Laurent," Elizabeth said when she finished reading. "Mrs. Laurent left something for you as well." Damien looked up, hope flaring stupidly in his chest despite everything. "What?" "This," Elizabeth said. She slid an envelope across the table. Damien opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single piece of paper. His wedding ring, which Sophia must have kept after the divorce. And a note in Sophia's handwriting, the last words she would ever write to him. "You asked me once to marry you. You promised to love me in sickness and in health. You broke that promise. Here is your ring back. I do not want any reminder of you. And in case you are wondering, no, I do not forgive you. I never will. Even death does not erase what you did." Damien stared at the note, at the ring, at the physical manifestation of his failure and his cruelty. Around him, people were gathering their things, preparing to leave. Sophia's father stood and walked past Damien without a word, his contempt needing no voice. Her mother paused beside his chair and looked down at him with an expression of profound sadness mixed with vindication. "She loved you," Mrs. Chen said quietly, her accented English thick with emotion. "Right up until the end, some part of her still loved you. That is what makes what you did so unforgivable. You did not just abandon her. You broke someone who loved you completely. I hope you think about that every single day for the rest of your life." She walked out, leaving Damien alone in the conference room with Elizabeth, who was packing up her files with efficient movements. "She built a $47 million company," Damien said, his voice hollow. "From a wheelchair. From a care facility. While dying. And I never knew." "No," Elizabeth said, her tone sharp. "You did not know. Because you never asked. You assumed she was broken and helpless. You were spectacularly wrong. I could have helped her," Damien said desperately, grasping for some way to rewrite history. "If I had known, if she had told me, I could have supported her work. We could have built something together." Elizabeth looked at him with barely concealed contempt. "Mr. Laurent, she did not tell you because she knew you would not care. Because you had already shown her exactly how little you valued her. She built her company alone because you made it devastatingly clear you were not her partner anymore. You were her jailer pretending to be her caretaker." "But I loved her," Damien said weakly. "Despite everything, I did love her once." "Once," Elizabeth repeated, the word sharp as a blade. "That is the operative word, is it not? You loved her when she was convenient. When she fit the image you wanted. The moment she needed you to love her through difficulty, through pain, through genuine hardship, you abandoned her. That is not love, Mr. Laurent. That is transaction. And Sophia deserved so much more than that." Elizabeth left, her heels clicking on the marble floor, leaving Damien alone in the empty conference room holding his wedding ring and Sophia's final words, surrounded by the rubble of his arrogance and cruelty. The next weeks were agony unlike anything Damien had ever experienced. Sophia's video went viral. Someone at the will reading, probably one of the charity representatives, leaked it to the media. Within 48 hours, the story was everywhere. Powerful Chicago businessman Damien Laurent had abandoned his disabled wife. She had then secretly built a multi-million-dollar tech company and left it all to charity just to prove him wrong about her worth. The story was covered by every news outlet in Chicago, picked up by national media, trending on social media for days. The comments were brutal. People calling Damien a monster, a coward, the worst kind of human being. Think pieces were written about ableism, about toxic masculinity, about the cruelty of the wealthy who saw disabled people as disposable. Sophia became a hero overnight, a symbol of triumph over adversity, proof that physical limitations did not define a person's worth or capabilities. And Damien became a villain, the man who threw away a brilliant woman because she was in a wheelchair. His reputation, the thing he had valued more than his marriage, was destroyed. Business associates distanced themselves, not wanting to be connected to someone so publicly reviled. Contracts were cancelled. Deals fell through. Invitations to exclusive events stopped coming. Women he approached for dates recognized his name and refused him, some with disgust, some with pity, none with interest. His own family was ashamed. His mother called crying, asking how he could have been so heartless to such a wonderful woman. His sister stopped speaking to him entirely, refused to take his calls or answer his messages. But worse than the public humiliation, worse than the professional consequences, was the private knowledge that ate at him every moment of every day. The understanding of what he had lost, what he had thrown away, what his cruelty had destroyed. Sophia had not just been his wife. She had been a genius, a visionary, someone capable of extraordinary things even while her body was failing. And he had looked at her and seen only the wheelchair, only the limitation, only the embarrassment. He had been so focused on appearances that he had missed the substance. So worried about what other people thought that he had destroyed the one person who actually mattered. He tried to make amends in whatever pathetic ways he could. He donated to the foundation Sophia had created, $1 million he could barely afford after his business took massive hits from the scandal. The foundation board sent the check back with a coldly formal letter. Mrs. Lawrence will specifically forbids the acceptance of any funds from Damien Laurent. Your money is not wanted here. He tried to apologize to Sophia's parents, driving to their house in San Francisco, standing on their doorstep with flowers like an idiot. Her father opened the door, looked at him with pure hatred, and slammed it in his face without a word. Her mother sent him a letter that said simply, "An apology means nothing when the person you wronged is dead. Leave us alone to grieve in peace." He tried to move on, to rebuild his life, to forget. But he could not, because everywhere he went, people knew who he was. The man who abandoned his dying wife. The man whose disabled wife built a secret empire just to prove him wrong. The man who valued appearances over humanity and lost everything because of that shallow cruelty. 5 years after Sophia's death, Damien Laurent was not the powerful, respected figure he had once been. His business was struggling, barely staying afloat. His reputation was permanently stained, the story of his cruelty becoming a cautionary tale told and retold in business schools and psychology classes. He was 43 years old, alone in the penthouse that had once been his and Sophia's home, bitter and haunted by the ghost of the woman he had thrown away. He visited her grave sometimes, a small plot in a cemetery outside Chicago where her ashes had been buried beside a tree she would have liked. He would stand there with flowers she would have hated, knowing she had made it clear she never wanted anything from him again, knowing his presence at her grave was one more violation of her wishes. "I am sorry," he would say to the headstone, his voice breaking. "I know it does not matter now. I know you cannot hear me, and even if you could, you would not forgive me. But I am sorry, Sophia, for all of it. For being too proud and too stupid and too afraid to love you the way you deserved. For wasting the best thing that ever happened to me. For not seeing what you were building because I was too busy deciding what you could not do anymore. For looking at you and seeing only what was broken instead of everything that was still whole and brilliant and extraordinary." The headstone never answered. The wind would blow through the cemetery, rustling the leaves of Sophia's tree. And Damien would imagine he heard her voice, cold and final, repeating the words from her video. "I do not forgive you. I never will." And he knew she was right. Some mistakes cannot be forgiven. Some cruelty cannot be undone. Some losses are permanent and absolute. Damien Laurent had everything once. Power, wealth, respect, and a brilliant woman who loved him completely. He threw it all away because he could not see past a wheelchair, because his ego was too fragile to handle people's pity, because he confused strength with physical ability and vulnerability with weakness. And he spent the rest of his life paying for that blindness, that cruelty, that catastrophic failure of character. 10 years after Sophia's death, the Sophia Chen Laurent Foundation for Women in Technology had grown to be worth over $100 million. It had funded scholarships for hundreds of disabled women pursuing careers in STEM fields. It had provided startup capital for dozens of companies founded by women who faced discrimination because of their disabilities. It had changed countless lives, creating opportunities that would never have existed without Sophia's vision and her determination to prove that physical limitations did not define a person's worth. And Damien Laurent, the man who had once dismissed his disabled wife as half a woman, lived alone in a penthouse filled with ghosts, knowing that the woman he threw away had accomplished more from a wheelchair than he would ever achieve with full mobility. Knowing that she had been worth $47 million while he had given her $2 million and thought he was being generous. Knowing that her legacy would outlive his by generations. Knowing that he was, and would always be, the villain in a story where she was the hero. This is the story of how a powerful man abandoned his disabled wife thinking she was worthless, how that wife built an empire he never knew existed, and how her will revealed after her death destroyed the man who thought he could just walk away. Sophia Laurent proved that disability does not equal inability, that physical limitations do not define worth, that the people who underestimate you give you the greatest gift of all, the freedom to prove them spectacularly wrong without them ever seeing it coming. If this story reminded you that true strength is not about physical ability, that love means staying when things get hard, that abandoning someone when they need you most is the greatest betrayal, then you understand what Sophia's story means. Hit that like button if you believe people should be judged by their character, not their limitations. If you think love should be unconditional, especially in sickness, if you know that the quiet ones are often the most powerful. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who has been made to feel less than because of disability or illness, someone who stayed strong when the people who should have supported them walked away. And subscribe because we have more stories coming that prove the people who are underestimated often accomplish the most extraordinary things. That revenge served from beyond the grave is the sweetest kind. That you should never throw away someone who loves you because you might discover too late exactly what they were worth. This is Best Heart Stories, where every story reminds you that your value is not determined by what your body can do, but by who you are as a person. Sophia Loren was in a wheelchair. She was also a genius, a businesswoman, a creator of technology that changed an industry. Damien Loren could not see past the wheelchair. That blindness cost him everything. Never let anyone make you feel worthless because of circumstances you cannot control. Never stay with someone who values image over your humanity. And never forget that the people who abandon you when you need them most are telling you exactly who they are. Believe them. Walk away. And then build something so extraordinary that they spend the rest of their lives regretting what they lost. Thank you for staying until the end. You are worth so much more than anyone who ever tried to diminish you. Remember that. I will see you in the next story.